Welcome to Watching Worse Films, your guide to Razzie history. My name is Jericho Reed. With me is Kyle Szymanski. And this week, we are also joined by a very special guest. Writer, producer with an incredible career and an amazing list of television credits, included but not limited to The Jeffersons, Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, Mork and Mindy, The Martin Short Show, Joni Loves Chachi, Married with Children, Muppet Babies, and The Kids from Room 402. However, that's not what interests us today. We're here because she's one of the 35 writers of 1994's The Flintstones movie. Welcome to the show, Razzie Award winner Cindy Begel.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah,
Pleasure to have you.
Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
So, just to start with the sort of logical starting point, how did you become involved with the Flintstones movie?
So I had worked with Brian Levant, who was the director and producer, and he did Happy Days and a lot of the Gary Marshall shows.
Yeah.
And at the point that I became involved, and then I could go back because I knew the history, but at the point that I became involved, I knew that they would that he wanted to work with people he had worked before, television writers, and do it as a table with 8 people at the table and write it the old, the television way.
Yeah.
And that's what I knew. I was hired for 2 weeks to write the script. We were going to, write 10 pages a day. And at the point that I was hired, there were 3 days before I wasn't there for where they had come up with a story that they wanted to use.
Okay. So my next question was, we, being ignorami from Scotland, we didn't really know anything about the industry. So obviously there are so many movies where you hear things like, I think the last one I thought of was Borat 2. I saw all the comedians listed so we thought it was something like that, but you're saying it was much more of the television style where it wasn't just that you were brought in for rewrites or something. It was like a writer's room.
It was a writer's room.
Okay, wow.
It's done exactly like a TV show.
Okay.
But okay, here's the caveat. The Writers Guild then, and I don't, they're changing things now, didn't allow an 8-person team.
Yeah.
And what happens with movies is, they sit in development for years, and then they say, go. It gets greenlit, and they want it now.
Yeah.
And so they got the go that it was actually, when it was written at this point, they knew it was going to be shot. And it was what was incredibly cool. It was at Amblin, it was Steven Spielberg's company. And on the Universal lot, he has, he has a compound there. I'm assuming he still does, but it's probably DreamWorks. I'm sure it's the same place. So that was also incredibly cool. So when they decided to do this, they just went with it. Like whatever was going to happen was going to happen. It's going to be written like that in 10 days. I don't think I could tell you about other movies, how they're done with multiple writers, but this was going to be a very unique. And we knew that we could do it.
Yeah.
Because of the television background. And that's how you do it. It was just going to be longer than an episode.
Yeah. Longer than an episode, but shorter than the season. Yeah, exactly. 3 episodes. So yeah.
So that answers.
Yeah. So the 35 thing is certainly outside the norm. So it said it was a record at the time. Do you know if that was true?
I don't know if it's true.
Yeah.
But it might be. But when all movies that are studio movies, not little independent movies, have multiple writers on it, but not at the same time.
Yeah.
And this one was also at the same time. I'll explain how it added up to all those names.
Yeah.
But the scripts are given to individual people or teams that rewrite the people before, that rewrite the people before, that rewrite the people before, or they throw out a script, they bring in new people, and then it goes to an arbitration at the Writers Guild. Wow. And first writer usually has more weight than other writers. And then what they do in the arbitration, you have to have 33% of contribution to a script to get credit. And sometimes it'll be story, sometimes it'll be screenplay, and what's happened in recent years, and this started with the Flintstones. They don't say this in articles, but what happens to the people that contributed and have no credit? It's not fair, so the names don't necessarily reflect any contribution at all. It can reflect all of the contribution.
Yeah. Wow. So yeah, do you want to talk us a bit more about the process then? So you because you mentioned 8, so you were an initial 8.
So this is what, and it was funny. I was just doing a little reading to find out what the complete genesis of the project was. And there was another director that had the project. I don't know if it was Richard Donner, right? Was it him who didn't he do Superman?
Yeah.
And so they had scripts from very big writers, one after another, and it just stayed in development hell for years. Then what happened was Steven Spielberg acquired the property for himself. He got the rights to it.
Yeah.
And those people now were gone. Then, from what I understand, is there was somebody named Michael Wilson, who's a screenwriter, who had a 4-page outline of a story. And that was the story that they decided to do.
Yeah.
Then they hired a bunch of other writers. Again, whether it was a person, also well-known, some of them, not everybody was well-known, but some of the people were very well-known, would write a script. And then they didn't like that script. And then based on that story, still based, as far as I remember, based on that story. And then they didn't like that. And then they make changes. And then they bring another famous writer. And so now you have a bunch of scripts. Okay. Now we come on.
Yeah.
And we were given 2 scripts to read.
Yeah.
That they might take little bits from those scripts, but they were not rewriting those scripts. It was going to be a new script.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so what happened was, like I said, the 3 days before, they came up with the story that they wanted based on, how much it changed. It probably changed a lot because I know how television works. As they were doing, coming up with new ways to go and different things. Now, I never saw the 4-page outline. Don't know. And then what they did is they had a storyboard. So they had a big board up, and they had the things on the index cards. Remember, it's a long time ago too. They still have whiteboards and stuff, but this was like with the pins and so everybody knew what the story was going to be. And then the goal was to write 10 pages a day. Yeah. Because then, and then the 10 days that people were hired for, it would get done. So that was the initial thing, was that. And so you had the 8 people sitting around a table, and then at the end of the table you had a big screen so that everybody could see the script and as it changed. And each of us had the 2 scripts in front of us, that if they wanted to use anything from it, they'll say scene whatever, we're gonna we're gonna look at that scene, and it'd be rewritten. They would never in television, they never ever leave anything if it's a group of people, really. It'll change in some little way. If it's a good joke, it might stay in, but it's rewriting, and you just hope your stuff stays through. And if you have a really good joke, it probably will. Yeah.
What was the process like? How did it then spiral out to 35?
So what happened was, this is what people kind of don't realize, because you'd say, who did what? Yeah. Right? Who did what with all these names? Okay, so we wrote that first draft. And then what happened was, we each got letters from Universal thanking us for giving them a movie they say that they wanted to make. Because remember, up until then, this thing has been language with all these versions, and and so that was pretty cool. And so then the next thing that happened, and I've never seen this in the media, and it's a pretty cool story, is they made posters up. And if you Google it, you could find the one that I'm going to tell you about. Okay. And the poster says on it, the Flintstones, it's darker than the one that you usually see. And it's at a drive-in, but it's from the back. It's shot from the back of the Flintstones. And then it says coming in May, I think it said 25th, And then, so what the campaign was going to be is, like, that year in all the movies, they would have this poster. And then when the Flintstones was, ready to come, you see the poster that they had, which now was the Flintstones are facing you.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Yeah.
so what happens is they put the poster, and they had those 3D. Remember, they used to have, like, I guess they still do, these big 3D posters,
Yeah.
So what happens is they put these posters in all the movie theaters.
Yeah.
As far as they're concerned, this is like a done deal. It's in all my parents go to the movies, and they go, we talk to the manager. He'll give us the 3D,
Yeah.
whatever that thing is. I go, well, what would I do with it? Where would I put this thing? It'll take up like half the living. So, okay. So that actually happens, that everybody thinks everything's okay. Now, let me go back a little bit. Okay.
Yeah.
So now you have where Universal recognizes the group that I was in as the writers of the film.
Yeah.
And so what happened, the way Brian worked, is he always wanted the best script with the best jokes that he could produce. I mean, that's just television. You just rewrite a lot. So then he brought in another group.
Yeah.
Okay, this is prior to the post, but these people were not going to get credit. They were just doing, there's something called writers for hire.
Mm-hmm.
And so it means you're just paid, and you don't know what, even we didn't know we were getting any credit. We didn't know, we were just writers for hire. So this second group comes in of television writers, really good people too. And they do a polish. It's still the script that it was, but it's now, they've added jokes, they've substituted stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Then they hire Babalu Mandel and Lowell Gans, who had done a lot of very big movies at the time, like Splash with Tom Hanks and City Slickers, and they did that a little later on. And they hired them for 2 days, and you can see in Wikipedia, so it's not a secret. For 2 days, they got $100,000. Wow. And I heard they added 8 jokes, but killer jokes, That's,
okay.
So to them, it was worth
money well spent to them. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's what people will repeat. They've always said that, they used to call it the water cooler jokes. It would be like if you watch a television show, and then the next day people used to, there weren't a million, there wasn't Hulu and Netflix, there were all these things. Everybody was watching the same thing. Yeah. So those were the jokes that people would repeat. So in television, they always thought these people that could give you the best jokes were worth, like $1 million or whatever. So anyway, so they added, these great jokes, and so each group, you see, ready? So mine was 8.
Yeah.
The next one was 8. Now you're up to 16.
Yeah.
You have the scripts that we read, right? We read the 2 scripts, and I know there was a third that we never saw. So you have those 3 people, right? So now you're getting into the 20s, right?
Yeah, already, yeah.
Yeah, and there were probably a couple of other groups, or even smaller groups that just did some punch up.
Yeah.
So then all right, so that's where we're up to now.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to give you an opportunity if you want to ask, something before I go on.
No,
absolutely not. No, take it away.
Okay, so you can see, all right, those names are really adding up. Everything seems great. We've got a movie, and this is where it gets a little sticky. Let me put it this way: there were some complaints.
Okay.
There were complaints that a group of 8 people wrote a script with a loophole of that you can't do that with the Writers Guild.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to be an 8-person group.
Yeah.
I'm trying to say this in a way that I can say this without giving out too much information. Let's just say there were some complaints.
Yeah, we can understand what you're implying here. Yeah.
So when those complaints happened, those posters came back out of the theaters.
Yeah.
And new names appeared.
Wow.
Does that tell enough?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
definitely.
It's fascinating to hear you speak about the water cooler jokes, because I've heard people say sort of address that thing as like a modern development of people are forced to write things to go viral or write jokes to work out a context on Twitter. When you're right, it's kind of a phenomenon that's been around since the beginning. But it's so interesting to hear you speak about the process, because we didn't really know what your role was. We just knew you were one of 35 writers. So that's why I was like, did you do rewrites? Were you there structurally? So it's fascinating to hear you speak about your sort of role in the project being much more substantial from the beginning than I had prepared for. What was the reputation of the film like in Hollywood? Like other friends in the industry, other writers, like could you speak a bit more about what it was seen as in the writing community as it was going on?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I have some allergies today. Okay, so let's think about the year that it was. Okay.
Yeah.
No internet.
Yeah.
So Rotten Tomatoes, none of that stuff. So the only let's talk about, Variety or the Hollywood Reporter or the LA Times. So those would be the only reviews that you would really know of. So now it was funny when I looked at the reviews today and I saw reviews gave it a 21%, which is about the lowest on Rotten Tomatoes. And that would have been many years later, of course, right? I kind of don't remember. I don't remember people hating it. I don't remember that at all. And I remember the thing that was fun, it was going to be a live action cartoon.
Yeah.
I don't think there were any expectations of War and Peace.
Yeah.
I still think watching it now, it did the job. And one of the big criticisms that I saw now was the reviewers said it was very adult.
Yeah.
That about him at work. Well, that's what the cartoon was.
Yeah, we've spoken about how
it was the cartoon itself was a takeoff of a television show at the time that was called The Honeymooners.
Yeah.
And it was a big mouth guy, a blowhard who's actually very sweet underneath. And it was that. So and these reviewers would know that. But, in the old days, children watched shows that weren't meant for children. Like I don't know if you know I Love Lucy. I mean, well, she acted childlike, but the stories were adult stories.
Yeah.
So that criticism, I'm not so sure is so valid.
Yeah. I agree with that. Especially, I watched the cartoon as a kid as well. So it translated across to the movie quite seamlessly at the time for me. It was just a live action adaptation essentially. So I don't think that criticism is valid at all. And I think it shines in comparison for the prequel, which is more goofy and silly and doesn't really have the tone that the original show had. So yeah, I don't agree with that criticism at all.
Yeah, I wasn't involved with the the prequel. So no. It didn't win a Razzie. We don't mind that one. Yeah,
don't talk about that one.
But I mean, this one I got to go on the set. I got to see them shoot it. I mean, it was so fun. And I remember when we went to the premiere, it seemed very magical.
Yeah.
Because also of the times. And the interesting thing is that would never happen now that people don't know. It was probably the last movie without a lot of CG, because the only CG character was Dino, and all the other puppets were made by the Henson Studios. And there were something like 200 of them, of these actual puppets. And the other thing that they did was it was pretty cool going to where they had the rock quarry and they had the dinosaur that he's, would sit on, and it was made, but it was the head and the tail. And then the middle part was looked like wood strips kind of sitting on top of it. And they filled that in with CG animation. So now, and they had bedrock.
Yeah.
They actually built, but that would not happen now. It would all be CG.
Right.
So that was cool.
This has been fascinating because, again, we went in not really knowing much of your role in production. You haven't spoken a huge deal about it online. We didn't know that you had visited the set, and so maybe before we jump into that, we'll just go back to the sort of pre-production stage. So were you a fan of the Flintstones prior to the movie? Did you have any big personal attachment going in?
Yeah, I did. I loved it as a kid. I mean, we're talking about a really little kid, and I'd have to go to bed like at 7:30 and say, but I watch the Flintstones. And so, yeah, it was just fantastic. So, when I was asked to do this project, I was absolutely thrilled. And then also that it was going to be with Spielberg.
Yeah.
And he, and I could tell you a little bit about him. I mean, it was mind blowing. So, he had, of course, the coolest offices, and he'd come by.
Wow.
He'd come by the writer's room and it'd be like, you'd just be blown away. This is Steven Spielberg, and he's in our office. You never get used to that kind of stuff.
No.
Really don't. Oh my God. And when he goes, oh, what's up today? And and he had a room of video games, and if memory serves me right, I think there was a chef that could make you stuff. I'm pretty sure I didn't make that up in my head, but I remember that that there was some good food because you didn't go out to eat, and I don't remember ordering food. I think there was a chef or something.
Wow.
And then one day I saw him. I was walking, in his compound, and it was just him and me, and I was like, oh wow, And so Schindler's List, had come out I think not too long before, and I got to talk to him about it. It was like. So much fun and so cool, and he was so nice.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something else that's funny that I've not seen anywhere. So at this point, they knew they had John Goodman.
Yeah.
And they were talking about casting Barney. And he said, "There's a guy that I really love." He saw him in something, and he said his name is Nathan Lane. And none of us had any idea who Nathan Lane was. Yeah, and when you think about it now, Nathan Lane looked like Barney. I mean,
for sure.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And the boys, right? And then they were going, no, we want Rick Moranis. So,
yeah, wow. Yeah, no. As soon as you said it, I could picture him seamlessly. Other double acts he'd been in, like the Birdcage and the Producers Remake. I'm like, yeah, he has that kind of Barney. I can see him. Yeah, wow.
Don't you like somebody said no to Steven Spielberg? Went, nah.
Yeah. Maybe let's speak more about that in terms of the Spielberg sort of branding. So it has like the Steven Spiel rock thing is one of the first things you see. And coming out, like there was that 1-2 punch of Schindler's List and Jurassic Park. How sort of relevant was Jurassic Park to the production of the Flintstones? Because I feel like it's a similar thing of doing that hybrid CGI and animatronics.
I never heard them mention it, and it's really funny. I saw there's a documentary on I think it's Netflix on Steven Spielberg that I just like about a month ago. It's really, really good.
Yeah.
And one of the things he talked about in Jurassic Park is when he took that project, he said, we'll have all these dinosaurs, and they didn't have CG. They not like that. And where you could create this whole thing. And he met this woman who did CG, who said, I'm going to show you something that's going to blow your mind.
Yeah.
And showed, a dinosaur or something. And she goes, we could populate the whole place. And it was like, he talks about that, about how that changed everything. But just think, because they still wanted all the Henson stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that they actually built physically the stuff. So I don't think it had a big influence.
Yeah.
The dates. I don't know the dates. You're saying that Jurassic Park preceded, right?
Yeah, I'll just try and find this for you here with some ad hoc Googling.
Yeah, so the Flintstones was 93 when we were writing it.
Yeah, so Flintstones to us anyway was I'll just find it here.
Because you're right. I don't know, then why wouldn't they have, I don't know. I think they just, because they I don't know, it's really good. I think because they wanted a great set. They had a great location called Vasquez Rocks. in Agua Dulce. You could go there and you'll see. It looks like that nowadays. They would be doing that as CG. They wouldn't
Yeah.
running around the place looking for a place that looked like that.
You'd be in a warehouse in Atlanta. Yeah.
I've always wanted to see Vasquez Rocks because I think of it with Star Trek. It's obviously a famous location there as well. Yeah, I think that the production value of it being on a set and being on location at times, it's like something that's missed. I don't think you could make this movie nowadays and have any of the same sort of charm to it, I guess is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, they're not made like that, right?
Not at all.
So the figures I have here, Jurassic Park, the release date was June 11th, 1993, and Flintstones was May the 23rd, 1994. So I guess I'd imagined it as being like the Triceratops in the room of like, we're doing this other dinosaur movie that's going to be utilizing some of the same sort of like sweet spot that we did in that one. So it's interesting to hear that that wasn't like a comparison on anyone's mind, not tonally or anything, but just in terms of the.
At least I didn't hear anything about it.
Yeah.
At all. And they'd have production designers come in, and show. I remember wardrobe person came in and it was like, do you like this? Do you like that? I mean, that kind of stuff was really, very fun. That all, it's such a collaborative effort.
Yeah.
You're doing the writing, other people are doing their job.
Yeah.
It's really such a fun thing. But also, it's very rare to know that you're writing it in 2 weeks, 10 days, and then it's going. It's not done like that.
Yeah. I'm really glad that you had that experience, because it's hard to know what to expect with these big budget productions when you hear so many writers are just like wrote it in a panic, handed it off, and was just completely uninvolved. And then the next thing I knew, it was in theaters with someone else's name attached or whatever. So I'm glad that you got to experience so much of the production. In the research for this show, I listened to other podcasts, other appearances you've made, which I would advise listeners to check out and to seek out you speaking if they're interested in writing as a craft, because it's fascinating and sadly less relevant to this show. But one thing that interested me was you speaking about like rules to writers' rooms. Like I liked what you said about the 3 jokes you were told not to do, like the "what am I, chopped liver." Did you have anything like that for the Flintstones? Was there anything you were told to avoid or told to do particularly?
All of these people had come up and worked. A lot of them worked for Gary Marshall.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm trying to think. There might have been 1 or 2 people that weren't. I don't remember, but most of the people had worked for him. And so those rules would have been passed down.
Yeah.
Don't make the obvious jokes.
Yeah.
The story that Gary Marshall told, and it would still be true for a screenwriter. And it was a good story he had told. He was hired onto his first show. I think it was the Dick Van Dyke Show.
Yeah.
It was with Carl Reiner, right? And so he had a partner, Jerry Belson, and they were really excited to be there. And the bit that they had to write was that for some reason, Rob, who was Dick Van Dyke, puts on a cummerbund, and they just write something like he puts on a cummerbund and he does something funny with it. He puts it on funny. That's what they wrote. He puts it on funny. So they were like there for like a week, and they get called to Carl Reiner's office and said, did you write this? He puts it on funny? And they go, well, yeah. He goes, the guard at the gate could write that line. He goes, I am paying you a lot of money to write what he's doing.
Yeah.
So young writers don't realize is that if you're writing physical bits, you write it out. And yes, the actors might rehearse it with the director and they come up with their, stuff, but they have the bones. The bones are there as much as the writers can think of. And he goes, you write what is funny.
Yeah.
Oh. And, screenwriters talk about this all the time is how much do you write in description?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And a great example that I could give you is I wrote a novel recently.
Yeah.
And I had taken a class at UCLA, and then I did a home writing group, a writer's group. with a teacher, the same teacher. And so when I don't read novels.
Yeah.
It's very different from writing screenplays.
Yeah.
But it was funny. I had given it to somebody, a friend of mine who's who's an executive, a TV executive who reads novels all the time. And she said this to me that didn't even occur to me. She said, I love it. I go, good. She goes, you left out something. I said, what? She said, you don't describe anything. You don't describe what it looks like. You walk in, you walk into a factory. What does it look like? Because we just write interior factory.
Yeah.
Day.
Yeah.
And so she said, and it was like, I didn't even realize that is that she goes, different writers write more descriptively and some are more bare bones, but she said you still need to describe what it looks like so that a reader has some idea of what's going on. So that's such a major difference between that and screenwriting, where if you look at a screenplay from like 1939, and there's a guy on Twitter, Scott Myers, who likes to old, screenplays. They're like pages, literally pages of description.
Yeah.
Now they don't even want camera angles,
Yeah.
We start close on, right?
Yeah.
A crane shot or this, that. They don't even really do that anymore. You can if you wanted to.
Yeah.
But they don't really do that. So, a lot of I always read the award winners, the screenplays, and I'm always shocked that, there's so little in description.
Yeah.
So that's the trend, right? Is how much you put in that, and so it's nice to know how it's shot and camera angles and the kinds of shots, and you would put it in if you needed it.
Yeah.
If it's essential to the story, right?
Yeah.
But if it's not essential to the story now, they don't, or the director probably would just cross it all out.
Yeah.
I did another movie with Brian afterwards, and it was a remake. It was in like 2010, and it was a remake of The Bad News Bears. Paramount had hired him to do that. And he had a writing directing a deal, and he said, I don't want to write it. Would you write it? And I went into Paramount. They approved me.
Yeah.
And and so I got to I got to see the Flintstones, how that worked.
Yeah.
And so now I was able to apply that to writing that screenplay.
Wow.
And on my own, I remember just saying to him, I don't know if I could do this. I'm a TV writer. I don't, he said, listen, it's 3.5 hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he said, I'm going to guide you through, we will pitch it out.
Yeah.
That's what you do in television. Everybody goes off. And if you write something by yourself, it's pitched out with the room, what you're writing. They know what you're writing, so even if you write it in the room, everybody knows what this, you don't just write, it's we know what's in the scene. We're going to talk about it before. So once you learn these basics, you could apply it to everything except novels.
Yeah.
You can do it a little bit differently. So then I was able to go back and then put the descriptions in, and I was like shocked at myself, because I also didn't use an outline. So we always write from outlines.
Yeah.
Or storyboard, something, right?
Yeah.
Because in television, it would be 22 minutes, right? Now it's a little longer in Netflix kind of, studios and stuff, but it has to hit, it would have to hit certain, the act breaks would have to be in a certain place. Now you look at streamers, they don't even have act breaks.
No.
Although they're putting commercials in now. So I wonder if they're adding act breaks, they might be.
True. Yeah.
I don't know. But stories have act breaks anyway, natural act breaks. When you're telling a story, you want, suspense here. There.
It's interesting. I didn't know that about Bad News Bears, because that was one of your first TV writing jobs as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was my first job.
So it's interesting that both Flintstones and Bad News Bears have that kind of transition from TV to film. I guess maybe that's something that's a good skill set to have as a TV writer, is you're coming into this sort of pre-established world. So What was that? What was that like for you with Flintstones and Bad News Bears? Was there, as a writer, was there anything you had to do to sort of capture the tone or the world? Like, what was that like?
I think that's a really good question. Because IP now is intellectual properties is a thing, a really big thing now.
Yeah.
Is to have an original property that can be made into something else because it has a track record already.
Yeah.
Like it. Or if you have something, I guess, very original. But with the Bad News Bears, what was interesting about that, it had started as a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Then it was made into a television show, and then I was going to make it into a movie.
Full circle.
Yeah, and so what happens is let's go back with the original movie, and then you're going to make it into a TV show.
Yeah.
A lot of people always feel they don't translate that well because the edginess of a movie, you couldn't do in television. You can now. You can do a lot more in television now.
Yeah.
Than the parameters then. So the TV versions always seem like a weak version of movies because you also like the big stars that they got. Now, the Bad News Bears television show had a pretty good actor. It was Jack Warden, who was in tons and tons of movies as a character actor.
Yeah.
And so we had somebody really, really, really good. And so that was my first show. And it was a single camera show, which was kind of unusual. They were doing mostly multi-camera shows. So it was very nice that I was trained in that. And then my second show was Laverne and Shirley, which was a multi-camera show, which is done. It's written in a different style.
Yeah.
So I got to learn that. I mean, I'm really lucky that I got to do everything.
Yeah.
And I don't remember you were asking me how does it translate from television to film, right? And then so you try to have the tone. I could give you an example of a movie. You probably won't know the movie, but you'll appreciate the story. So there was a movie in the 70s, and it was called Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. And it was
the Scorsese, yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, go with that.
Yeah.
It was a thoughtful, nice movie, right? About a woman who had been married and now she's single and she's with her son and she has some hopes and dreams and it was a hit. And what happened was they took that and they made it into a television show as a single camera, thoughtful show.
Okay.
It was a flop. It was a flop. Nobody liked it. They went and they brought two writers in named Madeline Davis and Bob Carroll Jr. Those two names wrote all the I Love Lucy's.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So they were broad writers.
Yeah.
Interested in particularly thoughtful, sensitive, So they bring them in and they rewrite it. And they actually had it on the air as a single camera show.
Wow.
They did. I don't know if they went past the pilot. I don't remember, but the rate maybe 1 or 2 episodes, and they brought it back as a broad multi-camera show, and it was an overnight hit.
Wow.
It was silly. It was silly. Alice, and they called it Alice. It was silly. It was broad, and it was a huge hit. And people were saying lines from it. Kiss My Grits, and I worked on that on that show. But that's an example of look how that went through this metamorphosis. Happy Days started as a single camera show.
Yeah.
And it did okay.
Yeah.
And they decided they brought in Fonzie.
Yeah.
And he became he wasn't I don't think he was in the first couple episodes, I don't think. Or if he was wearing a white jacket, and then they gave him the letter. Yeah. And then they made that a multi-camera show in front of an audience, and it became a hit.
Wow.
Which is, I don't even know if that's explainable. Why when they put it in front of an audience, because at home you're not sitting in that audience, but the broader tone.
Yeah,
definitely.
Those audiences, like with Night Court right now, with their reboot, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's also very, a lot of puns and stuff. Yeah. I wouldn't have thought that would have, would that really work all these years later? Yeah. Yeah, it's a hit. And then you're going to see all these shows coming back
Mm-hmm.
in
Revivals. Mm-hmm.
in these sillier kind of broader. They put some serious stuff into a little bit, but that the people like puns and they like that stuff. I'm very surprised.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I need to try and get in a room to pitch my multicam workplace sitcom adaptation of Silence now with Scorsese and the Japanese monks. Can we speak a bit more about your set visit to Flintstones? So what was that like? Were you required to Were you visiting the set, or were you working and feeding lines while you were there? What was it?
No, I just was visiting. I wasn't working.
Yeah.
I just said, could I come and see it?
Yeah.
And I don't even know if any of the writers had that interest, but I just like to see stuff. I don't know.
Why wouldn't you? Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's your head on the stage. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would just say to Brian, can I come? He goes, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And it was like really fun. I saw it one day was on the stage.
Yeah.
And then one day was I must have been there twice because I remember the rock quarry and I remember Bedrock and the houses. And I remember two locations, the Vasquez Rocks, and then the other one was I don't know if it was called Sunland, or I can't remember exactly. So it must have been two places. And I remember them all eating outside and all in their costumes and stuff. But the thing I remember on the set, and it's fun because when you're on the set, you could talk to people and you could talk to people behind the scenes, and they tell you stuff. And that was really fun. And I remember seeing John Goodman, and I remember thinking he looked not happy. That's what I remember thinking. He looked like he wanted to be anywhere but there. But I thought, and then I was reading that what happened was Spielberg had said in a meeting somewhere that John Goodman was there, is I'm going to be making the Flintstones and he's going to be starring in it.
Yeah.
And he couldn't say no. And now that makes sense to me.
He's not Nathan Lane.
I remember thinking, once the camera was on, he was all, happy and stuff. But I remember him thinking, And then the other thing that I remember, and this is really funny. So when we were writing it, they wanted Sharon Stone. They just thought it was funny. Let's name her Sharon. Everything had to be rock and stone. And so somebody said, well, what about Sharon Stone? And they said, let's get Sharon Stone.
Yeah.
And we'll get Sharon Stone. Yeah. So, they didn't count on whether Sharon Stone was busy. So someone said, I can't do it. And now she's Sharon Stone. That kind of thing happens. And so they hired Halle Berry, who nobody knew. She was in a couple of movies, but I don't think she had hit yet. And I was there the day that I just remembered her crawling along the desk. And I just saw it because I just watched the Flintstones. Remember I told you before? Yeah. So that was the scene. I remember her crawling on the desk and going, she's so pretty, whoever she is. She is gorgeous. Who would know? She was going to become a huge star. Yeah,
future Academy Award winner crawling along the desk. Yeah.
And the other story that I remember, this is really funny, was I wasn't there the day Elizabeth Taylor was there.
Oh, yeah.
Or days. It probably was one day. But I got the good stories about Elizabeth Taylor. So she came with her little dog who would poop on the stage and she would leave it there. And she would just expect people to clean it up. I remember. And then Michael Jackson came to visit.
Oh, wow.
And they said to visit her, and they said, so the assistant had to walk him, from the office to where the stage was. So that, they got to see him and talk to him and stuff. And that was pretty fun. And then the other story that I remember was very funny. So Elizabeth Taylor was playing the mother-in-law.
Yeah.
And she had been a huge star in her day.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure she has some Academy Awards. Yeah. And she refused to take any direction. Whatever she was told, she would look at Brian like, you're talking to me?
Wow.
That's fantastic.
I remember that, thinking that this was like so funny. There were like some cute stories. I remember being introduced to Rosie O'Donnell.
Yeah.
Because I remember thinking she's so wrong for the part, but then she was right for the part. She really Yeah.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
brought something to it for sure.
Definitely.
Like that relationship with Barney and Betty, it's yeah, they work really well together, and it contrasts with Fred and Wilma so well.
Yep,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, that was like really good vision. Elizabeth
yeah,
Perkins was really good.
yeah.
As Wilma, that was really good. Um, um, it was it was very, very exciting. I have a picture somewhere in front of like their house, you know.
Yeah.
Brought a friend to the set. He was really lucky. And he's not talking to me anymore, and I'm not talking to him anymore. And is like, you owe me.
When they do the Jetsons reboot, I will be coming to you. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one day you will repay the favor. Might be a slight non sequitur, this question. Something that's captivated me since being a child through to now is the technology in the Flintstones world, how you would have the little creatures, birds, whatever, inside TVs that would do the it's a living. So I've got a question for you. What is your favorite appliance, and what creature do you imagine it as? And I'm going to direct this to Kyle, so you have a couple moments to think. So
You say what I would make up, or what was in the movie?
yeah, just make up now. Like, what do you? Sorry if it's putting you too much on the spot. You don't
Yeah,
have
no.
to answer, but someone was talking to me about it, and I was like, oh, that's quite a good question.
What was your answer out of curiosity?
That's not fair. That isn't how this works. I don't know, because I would say favorite appliance. It probably has to be like something to do with my computer or like a cell phone. I feel like those are probably the things I use the most, but they're quite boring. So maybe like I'd be curious what Flintstones, like if we get super specific with an app, I would maybe, I guess it's just kind of the Dictabird, but I'd be curious what like Twitter would look like in the Flintstones if you just have a little bird that you would dictate thoughts to, and then it would yell like, please
Okay,
don't
that's a good
post
one.
my assassination coordinates. So I don't know. I don't know if this helps. It might be a terrible question.
You know what? I also loved what, was in the cartoons, and they really did stick to that in the movie, where you're taking a shower
Yeah.
and what is it, a mastodon or
Yeah. Just it
and
trunk through the window. Yeah.
I thought one of the cleverest things there that I thought was so funny was that whatever that pig was, the boar, that
Oh
was
yeah, the garbage disposal. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
was
That's a
really
clever one. Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah.
that was always the charm of the movie. So, of a modern day thing, I don't really know. They came up with 200 things.
Wow.
200. I mean, if you go back and look, there's some very small little details, even
Yeah.
instruments or just a fish doing something. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so clever. What I don't think we could beat what the Hensons
No.
came up with. And I wonder what they did with those puppets. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something else that's funny is writers. So not everybody is good at a table.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of pressure,
Mhm.
to pitch stuff. And so some people are very good at going off quietly and doing things. And so, when you're working, this group had never worked together, although they might have worked with each other on different shows. And the other thing that is particular to the Flintstones are the names of things that it has to be like Stone Age. And that's not so easy to think of. You have to name the department store. You have to name the gas station. You have to name the people.
Yeah.
So there was one writer that they sent off and just said, come up with all those kind of things. See, I know I've not been good at that. This guy was very, very good at that.
Yeah.
And so when he came back, he had pages
Yeah.
of Chevron with Chevrock. And he had there was a department store, I don't know if it still exists, that was called Marshall Fields. So it was Marshy Fields. And the designer Liz Claiborne, he did Liz Claybone. I mean, he was really, really, really good at this stuff. And they used them all.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that was very interesting is one of the guys on the staff was he did a lot of animation, tons of animation. So he thought in a very visual way. And in the Flintstones movie, the last scene is in the factory, and it's what ends up to be, I think, a concrete kind of machine that's moving. Is it moving rocks or something? I think
there's that kind of production line, and then
this one guy who was kind of a quiet guy. When we got to that, now we're at the end, came alive and pretty much was able to visualize that entire thing. It was phenomenal. Like we all kind of just sat back and was like, oh, good, you see that. That's good. But that guy kind of just pitched that out as he saw it. It was kind of complex of, the disaster that could happen to the kids and things. So that was also interesting, that when you have a group of writers and you use their strengths, even as a group, that somebody's sitting there sleeping, and then suddenly they're kind of talent. I was like, oh, I want to listen to that part.
Yeah.
And then the other thing about Brian that I love, he's great at leading a table. He's and picking out what he likes, and sometimes saying, oh, we could do better here, or he's just he's really, really good at that. And then when you start daydreaming, then he calls out your name and go, hey, Begel, I haven't heard from you. So it's like, and writers a lot of times do remember people's contributions, because it's like you were impressed. You go, well, that was a really good line. Yeah. And there were 2 lines that I pitched. And like I said, it is very hard to get something from the beginning to the end, because it changes so much. And now you're seeing all these different people, and everybody always thinks I could write a better joke. And Brian's always really good at picking out and keeping the best stuff. He's good at that. And so there were 2 lines that were my lines that when I went to see it, it was like,
it made it.
Lines had stayed. Those lines had stayed. Yeah. And so one was that, I didn't, when I was watching it now, I didn't get up to that part, but I remember the 2 couples are having a fight. Yeah. Right. And they don't like each other. And it was a scene where Fred can't stand Barney anymore. Yeah. And Wilma wants to be friends with them still. Yeah. At this point. And he goes, why can't you be friends with anybody? How is it? Any one of the other 404 people that are in the world. I'm missing up.
Yeah.
But But it's like, I know that one stayed. Yeah. Was at that time. And then the other one was, the situation was they needed, it was in the boardroom. Yeah. And they needed a line that would cover why Fred is late. Yeah. So the situation is Fred is going to be late. He comes in with an excuse, right? So, people are pitching on that and stuff. And so I pitched, sorry, I'm late. I ran over a nail. And then he shows his foot. Yeah. So what happened was they used that in the commercial. Wow. When I saw that, but John Goodman had changed the line slightly, just because he probably said it in a different word. And he said, I picked up a nail. And I thought, no. It's I ran over a nail, but they left it like that in the commercial. Yeah. And then his foot with the Band-Aid over it. So you what are you going to do?
Yeah. I remembered that just watching it. I was like, the nail and the foot was like so good, but I was like, this just feels like ran over a nail is so much better.
It is much better.
Yeah. So it was thrilling. I mean, you never get tired of creating and doing things. It's always fun.
It must have been such a fascinating set to visit, because the production design is so rich and there are all those little details. Like, just watching it yesterday, I was like, I almost wanted to pause every frame and just look at all the puns and gags in the background. Like George Lucas's Star Wars, like when they're at the drive-in.
Yes, that would have been from that guy.
Yeah.
That would have absolutely been from this guy. That was so good at that. Yeah, that was really clever. Yeah. And it just goes by it, right?
It's just throw away. Like you're just straining to spot all these like amazing gags in the background. So of course, you're here because of the film's connection to the Razzies, which is sort of the driving theme of our podcast. So you tweeted, and that's why we reached out, and you were so generous with your time to come on the podcast. Do you mind explaining to the listeners what the road to receiving your Razzie was?
Okay. It's such a weird story.
Yeah.
So I never knew I won a Razzie. And I saw a writer the other day on Twitter who said, my only goal in life is to win a Razzie. So I won one and I didn't know. Again, no internet, right? Yeah. So how would I know? Yeah. And I still don't really understand, since they actually do a live show and they have people collecting awards. I don't really know why you could always find me. I'm always listed. So I don't know why none of us, as are the rest of us, I don't really know why none of us knew we won. So what happened was, I would say maybe a few years ago, believe it or not,
wow.
I was Googling myself, I think. I don't know. I mean, how? Yeah. And I think, oh, no, I know what it was. I was looking at IMDb. And it always would say awards, but I knew I didn't win any awards, so I never clicked on it. Yeah. And then one day I looked and it said one award, and I thought, I wonder what I won. It says worst screenplay. So I won an award for worst screenplay, and then I'm looking at it, and it says that I won a Razzie, and I go, I know what those things are. I won a Razzie. Wow. And then I clicked on it, and originally it was just the 8 of us. Yeah. Then as time went by, they added, I think, 30 names, right? Yeah. So I never contacted anybody. I always thought, well, I don't know. It's funny that I never got anything, and I kind of forgot about it. Yeah. So, a few months ago, I don't really problem happened. And then I said, well, I actually won a Razzie, amongst, I think that's what happened with amongst a lot of other people. I said, but I never got it. I want it. Yeah. I go, I want it. So. And somebody, I think, might have tweeted, give her Razzie. And they didn't really respond. And then I think somebody else might have put, give her a Razzie. Yeah. And they said, we'll make an exception for you. Yeah. And we will, we'll give it to you. And then you can share it with the others. Yeah. You can have it on Tuesday and you can have it on Friday. Yeah. And I didn't know if it would be engraved. I didn't know what it looked like. But I was thinking, wow, that was really nice. And we exchanged some direct messages with them. And I gave them my address. And I said, that's really cool that you're going to do that. That's really fun. And then they sent it to me. So I want to show you the box that it came in. Oh, wow. Yeah. The box is. Oh, nice presentation. Yeah. Right. It's like a nice. I don't know what it says. I don't know what it says on it. What does it say? Is it Essence candles? Okay, that's the box.
Recycle. I like it.
Yeah, it's environmentally friendly.
In the box, this is really funny. Yeah. So, I'll show you. I know you're going to say, what is that?
Yeah. Things. Marker pens.
That's right. Okay. Yeah. These marker pens were to hold it from sliding around.
Wow, okay. DIY.
Yeah.
I guess. Because
no expense spared. I like it. Yeah.
That's the whole thing. And then, the whole thing is so cute. Yeah. They have this theme, who these guys were, they were the UCLA students, and they came up with this idea to give awards for the worst. And it grew into this big thing. Yeah. And then with stars, like Halle Berry, right? And
Sharon Stone herself was there. Yeah.
And then it became bigger and fun and stuff. And so now I'm going to show you this, the Razzie. And the one thing that you might be a little surprised about is it's very tiny, because when I took a picture of it and I put it on Twitter, and the way I shot it, it looked big and glorious. And
monolithic, like 2001, but
it's quite tiny, but it's worth everything. So
wow.
This is it. And I'm going to put it close to the camera so you can read it.
Perfect.
Heck
Are you able to read it?
Perfect.
Yeah,
that is
Cindy
perfect.
Begel et al.
There
Love
wasn't
it.
a writer named Al, so he, and it has like a little raspberry leaf on the
Yeah.
top. See,
Yeah.
and this is the other thing. So if you look closely, you see what has like the little bumps from the
Yeah.
raspberry. So they insert something in it that says, if it falls off, just smash it back on.
Okay.
So there were one or two that fell off. So I
Yeah.
smashed it back.
Nice.
Smashed it back on. And it says when it loses its color, take some gold spray paint and paint it.
Care instructions. I like it.
I like that as well. Yeah,
I was very thrilled with
rightfully so.
Razzie, and I'm very glad that there was almost a campaign to give me my
Yeah.
and so I'm 1/35th of it, but I'm the one who has it.
Well, thank you so much for sharing, because we've never seen one before.
No,
And as you've sort of identified, like beyond the like Hollywood A-listers who collected them, I don't know how many of them there are in existence, because we've spoken to another winner who never received his award and never seen it. So I'm sure he'd be very jealous. So it's great to see like there's certainly less Razzie trophies than Oscar trophies in existence. So thank you for sharing that with us. You tweeted that the other, since it's sort of like this is the one award, you tweeted something which made me laugh, saying that the other writers can fight you for yours. Have you received any bites yet? Anyone taking you up?
You know, if I put it on Facebook where all these writers are,
Yeah,
they'll break into my house for it. I know that. I know that, and I can tell you that. You remember when I said there were things I couldn't tell you
Yeah.
about the credits? So you don't think these people would be coming to my house and taking that award away? They would. It would be the same people.
Amazing.
It's
That's
mine,
fantastic.
and
You got there first.
yeah,
It's yours.
If I have to hire a lawyer over this, I'll be pretty mad.
So since you were deprived of the awards ceremony, we know so much that like winning an award is also about giving the speech. There's been all those iconic moments throughout Oscar history. Do you want to take this opportunity to give a speech? Is there anything that's been in the back of your mind for these past 30 years? Anything that you want to say? Here's your platform.
You do realize that every writer spends their entire life writing their speech.
Yeah.
I never thought I was going to win any awards. I don't have one. I don't have one. You know, it's like I would say I guess I would say I'm very proud to own an award for the worst of something. If I can't have the best of something, then I might as well be recognized for the worst of something. It's still an honor. My name is, is the last trophy I have is my volleyball trophy from 11th grade. So it's like, I don't know, it's pretty cool. Whatever it is
etched
to be
into the history books. Absolutely.
Yeah, and and I like that they told me that it costs $4.58.
Inflation, it's gone up.
Yeah, it's gone up.
Yeah. So it's all fun. And yeah, I do wish that I got to go. That would have been really good, because there would have been maybe a star that went too.
Yeah.
Right. Who won for that year? Do you know?
So that was the Color of Night year, I believe. We did cover. I'll just try and find you.
I mean, who wouldn't want to meet like Steven Seagal or somebody?
Kevin Costner was worst actor. Sharon Stone was worst actress. So there were some big names there that year.
It was Sharon Stone.
Yeah, what a great conversational piece that would have been.
Sharon Stone. Yeah. If she had picked the Flintstones and not that other movie, she would not have a Razzie.
Yeah,
exactly.
Pretty
Universe
perfect.
Works in mysterious
Karmic
ways.
justice.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you. That was such a great, concise speech, because I was ready to play you off with the Flintstones theme music if you went over long. But thank you so much, and it has been a pleasure speaking to you.
Absolute honor. Yeah, thank you very much for joining us.
It was fun. I love talking.
Wonderful hearing all the stories.
movies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Movies, TV.
Great hearing it.
I love it all. I love it all. And you guys were great.
Thank you. Is there
Thank you very
anything
much.
we can plug for you? Anything you want to shout out on our podcast with limited listenership? Your novel or anything?
Novel not completed yet, completed, but not out there. So, but thank you.
Okay.
No, thank
Well,
you.
it has been a pleasure speaking to you, and all the best. And yeah, take care.
Yep. Thank you again. Take care of
See you
yourself.
in Hollywood.
Well, yeah, that was a really fascinating chat. So once again, thanks so much to
Thank you
Cindy
so much.
Begel for joining us, taking the time to speak to us and sharing her experiences and stories from Flintstones and everything else. And next week we will be getting back to the graft, I guess. Back to the factory, back to the millstone, back to the grindstone. That's what it is. Back to the grindstone
Back
with
in the
our
mines.
watching our Razzies. We're going to be watching 2003's Gigli. So join us for that.
Exciting
And
stuff.
in the meantime, you can email us at watchingworstfilms@gmail.com, and you can follow us on social media where we are Watching Worst. So thanks once again, and we'll see you
Thank
next
you,
week.
everybody. Catch you later.
And then we just need to put the Flintstones outro music. And then